For many years, sorry, get choked up. For many years, Brian Stevenson has been my hero. And this summer, as I've gotten to hear him more, I realize what a hero he is to all of us. It was beautiful today. I heard your discussion with Drew Faust on race in America earlier this summer here. And I do hope each one of us can try very hard to walk in your footsteps and to live up to that talk you just gave. I also hope that every one of us can also think of that jailer. Because as Peter Reiling said, he's our jailer too. Every one of us has to think about the prejudices that we don't confront each day. We have to think about the privileges we've had and don't recognize. And I think if we're going to lead towards justice, as you've said, and as this group so wisely chose as its theme, we're going to have to try to walk with Brian, but also keep our eye on our own inner jailers that have stopped us from every hour fighting for justice. So you're a true hero of mine, Brian, and thank you very much. And Peter, Peter Reiling's also a hero of mine. When I first came here about 12 years ago, one of the first things I did was have a cup of coffee with Peter and say, hey, come aboard. He had been a Henry Crown Fellow. And he said, yeah, I'll do it, but I want to make sure I can take this leadership program to scale, because I think we can make a dent in the universe by doing it. I didn't realize his plan for world domination was this great, but I'm so glad it's succeeding. Thank you, Peter, for marching with all of us. We appreciate it. Part of the process here is that we all make an action pledge. There's a wall to make an action pledge. We follow that idea. And we at the Institute, as an institute, always try to be affected by that and to try to make our own action pledge. Last year, inspired by this group, we made an action pledge that we were going to start a whole new division of the Aspen Institute for Youth and Engagement. And it's partly because those of us in this room have gained the human capital that comes from being part of networks like this. But there's so many people in so many cities who don't have that advantage, that don't have those networks, that don't have that human capital. And we felt that it was important that if we were going to lead to justice, we do it. So Raj Venakata, who had started the Seed Academies, we lured him over, and he became the head of this new division at the Aspen Institute. Our pledge this year is to learn from each and every one of the Global Leader Network programs, because we pledge that we're going to start, as part of our youth engagement, the very first big project of it is to start fellowship programs based on the ones that you have just been through, based on the Henry Crown template that all of you, whatever fellowship leadership program you're part of, have been through, and to do it for 16 to 20-year-olds in urban areas of this country. We're going to start in St. Louis and in Newark. We're going to do it in some rural areas as well. But we're going to try to make sure that people in these cities have the same opportunities to at least have leadership training or network that we've all had by being part of the Aspen Institute and its programs. Part of it started when we went to Ferguson, a group of us, right after the Troubles there. We had discussions with young people in Ferguson, including Cliff Kenny, who's now an intern of the Aspen Institute, and with the sergeants, the White Sergeants Association of the St. Louis and Ferguson Police. And we realized that, in Brian's words, we hadn't really gotten proximate enough. We hadn't really learned from the people in these communities what could be done and what we could learn from them. And so coming out of St. Louis, Scott Bush, Crown Fellow. Where's Scott? There he is. Stand up, Scott. We were there, I think, at lunch the day after this meeting with the kids, the young kids from St. Louis. And Scott said, we're going to start a youth fellowship program based on the model that you had been through the Crown. So I want to thank you, because that's why we're starting in St. Louis. We're also doing it in Newark. I also want to give a shout out to some of the other people who helped us formulate this idea. Fagan Harris, are you here, Fagan? Fagan is the leader of our Baltimore Corps. He was standing right there a year ago when we were talking about this. Wes Moore, Fagan and all. We said, let's start these things in the cities around the country. So it's going to be tough, but I think this is the next wave that the people in this room are going to be joined by a whole wave of people who haven't had quite the privileges that most of us have had. But it will be the next wave of the Aspen Institute to take these programs, our Aspen Global Leaders Network, and bring it to the level of getting proximate with younger people in the cities of this country so that we can truly be a fellowship that is always leading towards justice. Thank you all, and have a really great afternoon.